Let's talk about the New York Times 100 Best Films of the 21st Century. On it are the works of 80 different directors from 26 different countries in 26 different languages, specifically with 75 of those films being in English. 75 of those films are partially dramas, 26 comedies, 19 romance films, 14 science fiction films, 12 action films, 8 Best Picture winners, 4 horror movies, 3 documentaries, 4 animated films, 3 Pixar films, and 1 Studio Ghibli film, 9 movies from 2000, none from 2020. I guess maybe it was a bad film year after all, and holy I'm looking at my Letterboxd stats right now, and I've given 82 of these movies 5 stars. I'm not a film critic, but I engage in film criticism and tend to rate movies higher, but holy that just really speaks to how great the list this is. Well, for the most part. As you can tell, the list swings pretty high towards English-speaking films and more well-known titles, but as many have pointed out with the methodology, this list swings much more heavily towards performers and directors if they reached out to more writers or critics, and specifically people outside the United States. Would we have less films in English on the list? Would there be more Middle Eastern films than a Seperation? Would there be a single African film on the list? And pessimistically, I do think no. These congregate lists lean heavily towards American films regardless of publication. Maybe a critics list could provide most of the changes that people are looking for, but again, this is still a strong list. That's really what matters here. I've also decided that I want to watch every single film on the list that I hadn't seen before, so today let me talk about and rank the 9 films from the New York Times 100 Best Films of the 21st Century that I'd never seen before, and let me just say, every single one of these movies was a gem. I'm James, and this is Movie Good or Movie Bad. If you enjoy videos like this or other video essays, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell. It is all very appreciated. And some of you may be like, James, what happens if I subscribe? You never make another video again. I guarantee that I'm releasing videos almost weekly, whether video essays or experientials, or I'm watching all sorts of different movies and talking about them in a much more informal way. At least weekly until the end of October, maybe more beyond that. I have so many ideas in such limited time. I'm making videos literally as fast as I can because I have too many ideas. And if you want to hear more of my thoughts about movies daily, please give me a follow on Letterboxd, on TikTok, on Instagram, anywhere else you can find me on the internet. I'm either Movie Good or Movie Bad, or Movie Good, Movie Bad. And now let's talk about the 9 different films I hadn't seen off the New York Times 100 Best Films of the 21st Century, with these ranging from being just great movies that I think were really fantastic. I'd own them on Blu-ray, I'd see them again, to films that literally almost made me scrap this entire video due to wanting to make a video essay around the very topic of that film, specifically the number 1 movie here. There's some real gems here. Love them all. Do not be offended by how I rank them. So first, let's talk about number 9, Toni Erdmann. This film is a 2016 German comedy drama and won Best Film at the European Film Awards for that year. In the film, we follow Winifred, a divorced music teacher who uses the persona Toni Erdmann to be a bit of a prankster and a goof who's having difficulty processing the loss of his dog, so he decides to go visit his distant daughter, who's played by the incredible Sandra Hüller, a businesswoman currently focused on her career with little time for family. And admittedly, and maybe sadly, this was the only film of the 9 that I at least wasn't familiar with before looking at this list, and it was daunting to go into a 2-hour and 40-minute comedy drama, but Sandra has never led me wrong before. I was ready. And immediately, I found this film to be great. There's an instant relatability, at least when reflecting on my time being alive and on this planet when thinking about the relationship between a parent and their adult child. To put this in a much more overt perspective, you are born without any consent to if you want to exist, and if you live with your parents and have a relationship with them, you have to rely on someone to clean your poop, to feed you, provide you with shelter and clothing, specifically when you're a child, but there's nothing wrong if this happens when you're an adult, and do all this while you're feeling so many complex and challenging emotions without the language to express them, and then all of a sudden, you're an adult with a job, developing your own sense of independence and trying to figure out what purpose you may have as you try to start out your own family or explore adulthood through whatever brings you meaning. And then all of a sudden you have to redefine your relationship with your parents because you don't need to have all this assistance or support for those needs anymore, and that is all really hilariously explored in the film. There are few experiences I can imagine being more hilarious and cringeworthy than having a serious work meeting when your father comes up to you wearing an awful wig and fake teeth and pretending to be another man. But the humor all serves as a chaser for this really painful reflection at times of a relationship between a father and daughter who have far more history than we can understand, but we can begin to assume the strain began because of a complicated past where this father really probably messed up, and Hüller's character creates a valley of distance as an excuse. To have such strong leads here really excel at the drama drama and the comedy is so special, and even last on my ranking, this is a very well-deserved film on this list. Next at number 8, we have A Prophet. The 2009 crime drama had first flown onto my radar back during the Oscars of that year because of its Best Foreign Language Film nomination, and at a time when I was so young and impressionable and just beginning my journey as a cinephile, there was an immediate grit and weight to this story that always fascinated me from afar. And now I find myself hesitant to watch this because it was also directed by Jacques Audiard, director of Emilia Perez. And quite honestly, I think the comments he made during the press tour of Emilia Perez about various minority groups should make us pause a little bit when looking at this film about Malik, a 19-year-old man of Arab descent being imprisoned for attacking police officers and finding himself courted as the personal assassin and informant of the Corsican Mafia. And the film crafts a rich but bleak tapestry with characters within this world who are complex, who keep their cards close to their chest, and are trying to survive in cutthroat situations that they're all trapped in, whether it is by choice or not. And it's a shame that Tahir Rahim, who played Malik, did not have a much more vibrant career after this. He is a revelation within this role. He is probably maybe most known for playing famous Spider-Man villain Ezekiel Sims in the hit film Madam Web, but Rahim here embodies a man of shadows, someone who's been forced into this lifestyle and without a moment to reflect on the man he's transforming into, undergoes an evolution that is frightening. Criminality is portrayed in such a neutral way here without any of the weight of the violence being lost here, and a real understanding that all the men that are part of this crime syndicate are not just shaped by these horrific actions. And when thinking of the greatest crime dramas like The Godfather, I think it's very possible to view these films through the lens of pure entertainment or also for their rich social commentary, and A Prophet is no different. Next at number 7, we have Melancholia, which I was very glad to scratch off this Kirsten Dunst starring film directed by Lars von Trier, a film that many told me to watch and give a fair chance despite my difficulty getting into von Trier's films. The 2011 film follows Justine and Michael, a couple celebrating their marriage at Justine's sister Claire's home, as it quickly becomes a mess and a planet called Melancholia is about to crash into the earth. And clearly von Trier won me over in a way that I hadn't experienced from his work before, otherwise, this would be at the bottom. I'd give this a bad rating. I wouldn't say all these films were great. Well, duh. And obviously when looking at the title Melancholia, reading von Trier conceiving of the film at the height of his depression and seeing the depressive and resigned state Dunst enters later in the film, and seeing her have a sister be also so deeply anxious and unsettled by the potential world-ending event, we have a film about two sisters representing depression and anxiety as they believe they're experiencing the end of the world, something people with depression and anxiety believe that they're experiencing at the worst of their mental states, even if the world may be okay if they just let time pass. And the film struck me as one of the most saddening that I've seen in quite a bit. There is a dread that shapes the entire film, even in the beginning as we're supposedly following a bride and groom to their wedding celebration, and as that limo has trouble making it up the road to the party, you can't help but feel this growing tension between the two, which reaches a fever point by the second half of the film. And Kirsten Dunst really is the sun with all these other characters revolving around them in this project, carrying the magnitude of the entire film on her shoulders, not to belittle the other performers, but really just naming, wow, she is amazing here. I mean, she seamlessly blends into the much more abstract and surreal moments of the film, embodying and defining depression in a way that feels so palpable and really incomparable to anyone else in their portrayal of depression. It is such a special film that it makes me reconsider some of my takes on the other Lars von Trier films I've seen before, and actually want to give them another chance. Next at number 6, we have A Seperation, the sole Middle Eastern film on the list. The 2011 film follows a couple attempting to receive a separation, but the family court does not believe that there are adequate grounds for the couple to end their relationship, despite Samin wanting to leave Iran and provide for their family elsewhere, and Adir wanting to take care of his father with Alzheimer's. The film serves as a powerful reminder of the ways that conflict can sprout and escalate when not given the opportunity to pause, and without spoiling the film, creates further fractures and ruptures within their family and even amongst their friends. Each one of these characters is written in rich ways, allowing for them to exist being flawed with such understanding and empathy towards them at the same time, even when the film goes to some uncomfortable places and it becomes more clear than not, there is no easy solution to any of this, and the constant division that we feel only deepens. Exceptional yet quiet in how it moves and never letting up in its slow build of tension, it also serves as a sad reminder of what happens underneath oppressive and conservative governments when things like divorce are not granted as freely as they should, and how ironically in these steps to attempt to preserve families, only make things worse. It's a miracle a film like this was even made, just reflecting on the laws around censorship in Iran. The film received no funding from government grants, even with Asghar Farhadi's acclaim and recognition, and there was even a temporary ban on making the film because of concerns over how the director would handle the subject matter. Whether you view the film primarily as a family drama or a social realist film, its original screenplay win at the Oscars is one of the greatest in history. It's impossible not to be moved after watching the film. Next at number 5, we have Almost Famous. The 2000 Cameron Crowe film is still a favorite of many of my friends, a film that shocked a couple of you when you saw me log it on Letterboxd for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and the only film on this list that someone reached out to me to say explicitly, James, don't watch this movie, it's not worth it. And after watching this 70s adventure of a 15-year-old having dreams of being a rock and roll journalist, traveling with the up-and-coming fictional favorite band of his, Stillwater, and finding himself falling for one of the female fans tagging along on this trip, I found myself really falling in love with this film. It's a coming-of-age tale, which I'm already biased to, about a young boy trying to find his place in the world and being thrust into an experience that's radically different than he hoped for. People often talk about the wish fulfillment of directors or writers about making movies in creative fields, but elements of this film are semi-autobiographical to Cameron Crowe actually being a teen writer from Rolling Stone, which makes me wonder how did they allow this from a child labor standpoint, but I digress. And for as funny and charming as the film was, I felt like it really spoke to me in a shocking way that's been impossible for me to let go. And my time being an influencer online or just really talking about movies for the past 2.5 years, I get reached out to by directors, writers, actors, sometimes producers. Sometimes these people are very, very unhappy with me. They leave very unhappy messages. Sometimes when I just leave the lightest of criticisms, but other times people reach out to me because it's so positive what I have to say. They feel like I've seen their film in a very specific light that they hope that somebody would see their film in. And to balance those types of relationships and my role as a critic becomes tricky, because part of my role in engaging with film criticism is being honest and fair, and that becomes infinitely harder when I can say someone is a friend or friendly with me, and sometimes people are only comfortable sitting in those moments of praise and not when sitting in anything less pleasant. It's a balance anyone in any form of criticism has to have, and I found it captured here in a way that felt so specific to my experiences online and spoke to them so well. I will always reflect on Almost Famous so fondly, and I'll try to seek out the director's cut sometime in the near future to rewatch it. Next at number 4, we have the Gleaners and I, sadly one of the only documentaries on this list, and sadly only one of the few Agnes Varda films that I've seen, but I do want to see the entirety of her filmography sometime this year or next. This 2000 documentary follows the lives of gleaners, or those who search for leftover food or resources to care for themselves in a broader context, but more specifically through the definition, are searching through the already harvested fields looking for a stray corn of cob left behind, a random misshapen potato, or a tomato that's fallen off of some kind of farm equipment. It's a film that brings Varda all across France, which was much more feasible due to her choosing to film a documentary using a handheld camera, making for a cheaper production and one that was also much lighter. It is much easier to transport a Sony camcorder than it is to transport a camera and reels of film. The use of handheld also helped Varda get physically closer to our participants, allowing for greater intimacy and an inescapable warmth that never really makes us feel like a voyeur or that we're overstaying our welcome. We're just simply peering into the lives of others, which is really funny considering the next film on this list, but I didn't realize that until reading this just now. The picture became all the more shocking to me once I recognized how big and broad in scope it really all was, spending time with people who are foraging not just in farmlands who have too little to eat, but we also spend time with a Michelin star chef who forages. We spend time with a therapist, and even there's a reflection of Varda herself as she's attempting to gather as many interviews as she can, taking all these visual scraps and sewing them together into a documentary, making her a gleaner herself. Having this film look at the lives of people that we don't typically see represented in film or documentaries is just so special. I'm so glad that Agnes Varda did so much to highlight the lives of all of these people. Next at number 3, we have The Lives of Others, the 2006 Academy Award winner for Best International Feature Film, and a film that I embarrassingly became aware of after it appeared on so many TikTok movie filters. And the film boldly asks, what if the FBI agent inside your walls was looking out for you and probably also in love with you? We follow a Stasi officer who begins spying on a playwright and his lover, only to discover his growing sympathies to their beliefs and realizing that he's only spying on this person because of his supervisor's attraction to the playwright's partner. And The Lives of Others is a film that rests primarily in silence, sitting alone with this man as he listens into the lives of others, being able to better untangle their public personas from their most vulnerable of selves, and having to do this all within the shadows, and with us as an audience only able to read this man's face and sit along in horror as he's often sitting in his own silence. Watching this, it's so clear we're watching a government that's sitting within the shadows overshadow the government it once was, specifically before World War II. I want to make that clear. I am so sorry I did not clarify that in the script. And one that was also so near to dying, or at least absorbing itself within West Germany and becoming one large country again. Everything that's said here is just so powerful, but the real power of the film lies within the quiet moments where you can just imagine, right? It's a film about Big Brother and how the powers that may be can easily be abused beyond our comprehension. It is about how powerless we can all be once we're intertwined with these systems, and sometimes that can make us all complicit. Drama reaches a high point here that's impossible to not be engaged with, masterful in its performances, its direction, and its writing, and really is just one of the greatest dramas of the last 20 years. Next at number 2, we have Amour, and not to be redundant, one of the most radiant displays of love that I've ever seen, which may be a shocking reaction for anybody who's seen the film. I personally avoided it due to how many people saying how heartbreaking the film was when it was released, but now I'm ripping off the band-aid and no longer avoiding a film after 13 years. In Amour, we follow Georges and Anne, a couple in their 80s who are both retired music teachers, whose lives are suddenly changed when Anne has a stroke, and it becomes suddenly much more challenging to manage her care. Now, I'm not going to spoil this film, but I've certainly known the ending of this film ever since it was released, and really, if you've seen the first 5 minutes of the movie, you know what happens, but I feel like most of the dialogue around the film when it first came out was really about its conclusion and people's reactions to it. Many have shared how devastatingly sad the film was, how it made them reflect on how little time there is left for all of us, and how much time do we really have to spend with the love of our lives, leading to some even defining the film as a horror film. And I'm sure the presence of naturalistic lighting in the film gives it a quality of being a document rather than a film, adding to the authenticity of the narrative and the feelings it breathes into the world, really also adding to how everybody just reacted to this movie. But I viewed the film much more optimistically, not denying that Anne experienced a horrible fate in the film, and something that, people avoid overall, right? People don't like being in pain, people don't like aging, people don't like nearing the end, people don't like being sick, and that's all natural. But what I saw in this film was a man so willing to be by the side of his wife at her most challenging time, and despite her physical ability really changing, despite her mastery and ability to express language changing as well, he was always present and always caring to the best of his ability. And don't get me wrong, they deserve so much more. I'm not romanticizing the failures of a healthcare system or the abuse that can take place by an overworked aide or nurse, but he did so much to comfort her throughout this movie. There is an overwhelming love present in the film that I can only hope to achieve one day when spending the final days with my spouse, and I just loved every ounce of this film. And finally, at number 1, we have the legendary documentary The Act of Killing, a film that's reputation has been so overwhelming for me to approach considering my own family survived a genocide, but this film follows individuals who participated in the Indonesian mass killings that took place between 1965 and 1966 in a genocide that is believed to have killed somewhere between 500,000 to 1 million people, and some more liberal estimates believing the death toll to be sadly closer to 3 million people, with anyone believed to be a communist or anyone opposed to the new government regime being targeted. And these are individuals who, upon assisting a military coup, were rewarded with gaining power. These are people who face no penalties, who are walking amongst us, engaging in everyday activities, going to restaurants, walking through your malls, and when asked to recreate some of these tragedies, with some even taking on the roles of those that were tortured and killed, and nearly all of them not feeling any form of remorse, even gleefully describing the atrocities that they've all engaged in throughout the entire movie, one even naming not having felt any depression or experiencing any nightmares since these events took place 60 years before. Many may take pause when hearing these monsters compare themselves to the United States government and their involvement in the Iraq War, and those comparisons are accurate. We are similar supposed victors who've gotten to create our own narrative and escape accountability when looking at the harm done globally. Many now will look at the Israeli government killing Palestinians and feel something similar due to the global support surrounding Netanyahu. What are the narratives that will be shared about Palestine 10 years from now, 50 years from now, 1,000 years from now? I want to live and see a free Palestine, but I'm also very aware of what happens if Israel gets to control this narrative. I considered making a video essay on the act of killing, but the content in its presentation was so disturbing that I can't imagine myself sitting down to write a script, recording an essay, editing it, and combing through the footage of these villains escaping any form of recourse. As a person whose family survived the Cambodian genocide, genocide is not a topic that I take lightly, and the documentary handled it wonderfully. Some may be afraid of what does it mean to profile these horrific men and put them underneath the spotlight, but while they're so comfortable parading their actions, Joshua Oppenheimer gazes upon the banality and evil in a way that I've never seen before. The villains around us ignore any possibility of causing any pain, and the discomfort was nauseating, but this film was among one of the most powerful that I've ever seen, a masterpiece in every sense of the word, Please see this film and give yourself space to process afterwards. Of all the films that I have here, this is by far the most important. Every single one of these films was incredible. I said that before, and I really do mean that now, especially after spelling each one of them out. And it was incredible to cross all these off my watch list. I'm so glad that I've seen all of them, even though this was a very depressing experience overall, if I can be very frank. Also, this is very different than the video essays that I upload online, but if you enjoy videos like this, or want me to make more videos like this, or want to see my video essays, again, comment what movie that you're most interested in seeing after looking at this list, or just even comment the movie that is your favorite of the movies on this list, or subscribe and hit that bell. My name is James, and I can't wait to see you all next time.